Raise your fist. Pew pew. Raise your fist. Pew pew. My bad. Good. I was
It's
raising
funny
my
that you
fist.
would say that because you know that's who signed this. But I'm gonna just
Yep.
tell you this here.
Yeah.
As our good friend Justin would say, it's Tuesday, so you
Mm-hmm.
know what that means. And if you couldn't tell by the name of the show, we're going to be talking about the
Mm-hmm.
X Division. More importantly, the X Division Championship. It has always been about breaking boundaries, defying expectations, and showcasing the best high flying, no limit wrestling. But in January of 2024, Impact Wrestling took it to a whole nother level. When I say I'm showing this for a reason, because remember, in January 2024, Impact Wrestling did something that sent shockwaves to the wrestling world. But it's time we take a closer look, not at this championship, but one. And let's look at it none other way than the championship culture boys can do it. So let's get to it.
Let's rock.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Wrestling Realm Presents Season 3 of Championship Culture. And ladies and gentlemen, what just happened, you got to go back and see. But I'm Brandon the Guy, and he is none other than H to the A to the S to the T to the H to the E to the 3 to the R to the D.
You mess it up
Brother,
every time.
I do it on purpose because that is your gimmick.
I know. I
As
know.
the third, he is Brother Hugh, is here with me today. Brother Hugh, how are you feeling? Because clearly you started the shenanigans early, and I
Oh,
was not prepared
absolutely.
for. And I should have looked because I have the ability to look too, but I didn't because I
Yeah.
trusted you. And you see what
Yep.
happens when I trust you.
You know better.
Th- that always has a way of when you trust somebody, it always bites you. But in this
Yep.
the in this case, Brother Hugh,
Yes, sir.
before we get into today's show,
Mm-hmm.
we gotta address the elephant in the room. Were
What's
you
that?
surprised that Moose made that announcement?
And yeah, of course, yes. Because we just
Okay.
got this built. We just got it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even, it's barely a year old. Well, it's a year old now, but
Mm-hmm.
come on now.
And the thing is about this, right?
Yeah.
That redesign kind of redefined the X Division, right? It kind of
Ooh,
took us to
bars.
a place. Yeah, just keep
Mm-hmm.
that in mind, right? Because it
Yeah,
was a legacy. Because you can't talk about TNA wrestling without talking about the X Division, right? You
absolutely.
can't talk about a era of whether it be TNA, Impact Wrestling, Global Force Wrestling, or TNA without talking about the X Division. That's the one thing that's been constant. And we even said that in season 1 of Championship Culture when we talked about. I think we had a whole show about that, right?
Yeah, we did.
I think we
Absolutely.
did. I think we
Yes, we
did.
did.
But in season 1 of Championship Culture, we went into why
There it is.
X marks the spot, right? And at the time, that was the current X Division Championship. And man, that was a
Mm-hmm.
beauty there. I didn't think we can get any better because it seemed like every design kept increasing, right?
Yep.
Because it became a standard of, how WWE has the Intercontinental US title, but TNA always had that X Division as is by default. No matter what happens, we know that is a secondary title, right? But when you talk about, and we throw that word around, championship, I'm sorry, legacy, iconic, prestigious. No, the X Division has always been constant. So let's just call it that, right? And when you think about the history of it, as far back as it goes to 2002, when it was the first inception, we talked about this being no limits, no weight limits. You had a belt that was building eyes on the product, but building stars that we enjoy today, like a Samoa Joe, a Jay
Mm-hmm.
Lethal, Alex Shelley, and Chris Sabin, Eric Young. But then we saw people like a Austin Aries, P.D. Williams, who's actually a backstage producer now.
Petey
Um,
Petey.
you know
Yep.
it. Sonata, New Japan, former New Japan World Heavyweight Champion. Eddie Edwards, Brian Cage, even some notable names like Ace Austin, who's still doing his thing. Chris Bay, hope that he gets better soon. Let's just keep him up because without
Right,
this
right.
belt, we wouldn't have seen the rise of Josh Alexander when his partner left. But then we got to see what he could do with the world title. But in X
True.
marks the spot, we talked about all of that, right? So I'm gonna encourage people to go back because we want to talk about today, right? Are
What
you
we
are you
talking
ready?
about?
I think we
We
want to
talking
talk
about
about
this
this thing right here.
Michigan
Woo.
Mustache Mountain. Yeah.
So before we get into that, why do you call this Mustache Mountain? That's all I want to know.
Look at that bottom banner. It curls up like Booker T's mustache,
Okay.
doesn't it?
So
That's all I
okay,
see on the belt now. Like it's beautiful, but
it definitely
that throws
is.
me off. Yeah.
And, and I'm gonna tell you this about this belt, right?
Yeah.
So let me take you back to a year ago. Impact Wrestling was going back to TNA, which made them special. And, I don't think Impact really had a chance to survive because we knew it as TNA. And it was
Right.
always talked about, right? But
Right.
when Chris Sabin, who's a notable 10-time X Division champion, held every version of the belt, right? He was the current champion, and when we were getting new champions, it just felt right that it was around his waist, right?
Yep.
Yes, we were all watching at 12 o'clock waiting for that belt to come about, right? But let's talk about that design. And I'm gonna compare it because yeah, it was red and silver before, but when you look at this belt versus the old one, you notice some um, glaring differences, right? The silver now on the side plates are more prominent. Now I'm gonna get the old one to show you where it came from, right? Because they still kept the X as the prominent feature of it, right? But now what TNA did, if you look around the plates, they have designs. It's an X tooling around it that doesn't need jewels because guess what? Look how it shows without stones on it, but even the graded pattern around it, they got the globe, the actual design. And when you get to the main plate, everything about this belt, from the mirror finish to the red to the yellow, just works. The logo on this belt clearly tells you it is TNA's X Division Championship. And as Brother Hugh has said, the mustache, which now I can't unsee, but the champion banner is just as important as everything else. It lets you know this is the X Division champion. And not to be taking away the other side is mirror one side to the other, but the Anthem logo even has I'm going to just say it so people understand it, a big cold gold type feel for the floor pattern around it. And the Anthem's logo is clearly defined. Now, one thing about this belt that stands out, each belt plate is a unique design. So no matter if you're looking at the side plates, yeah, the outer two are the same, the inner two are the same and just mirrored, but none of them look like they were out of place. They always have this thing at TNA that the belt just works. It's symmetrical to each other. So, brother Hugh, I know I just talked about this belt a lot. When you first
Hmm.
saw this, what was your initial reaction?
I can't say what it really was or how I want
Oh,
to say it,
okay.
but I was amazed. I
Hmm.
immediately I wanted to go to the just find a way to get that belt. To be honest, the whole set of belts, because as we know now, TNA has the best set of belts in the game right now, in the wrestling industry right now, hands down. The way they redid everything and just the color scheme, it all fits, it all works, even to the digital media title. That thing was atrocious before, but the remake of that, it works very well. And I just thought it was amazing. And I just wanted to go and get my hands on it as soon as possible.
Now, when you say the color scheme, we know TNA to have red as their main thing. When they brought back the
Hmm.
yellow, right? Because remember,
Yeah.
the yellow was there in the early days. Did you think yellow will work on this belt? Because they revealed the logo. They were saying we're coming back and all these things. Did you think the yellow made a big difference, or were you nervous about the yellow?
I'm usually nervous about yellow because it usually doesn't show up too well on like the golds and silver, especially if you're on TV. But that particular shade of yellow is bright enough to pop. You just have just enough hit of yellow to complement the red and the black that's in there. So it works with the silver and also works with the gold. So it makes sense. That yellow right there makes sense.
And then the thing that I love about it, they kept the iconic X in the center, which most people say will symbolize what the division stood for.
Right.
The X division, no limits, breaking through ceilings. The thing about pro wrestling, when you hear people talk about the X division, it's not about a small high flyer. It's not about a big heavyweight. It's about what can we do in this match, because this is going to give you those memorable matches, right? And
Hmm.
over the years, we've seen different variations of this belt. We've seen the color swapping. We've seen almost like constant upgrades to it, but it always had remnants of prior. But this time, the X was so huge on this one in comparison to the previous version. And I'm gonna just show you, they kept the X everywhere, on the sides, all the way down, that you knew it was the
Right.
X division, right? But see
Absolutely.
how the points of the X extend to the corners of the belt? They kind of kept that same motif on the newer belt, because now the X
Similar to the
extends
NXT
all the way
title.
to every. Yep, it extends all the way to all four corners of the center plate, which was always the thing that just drew my eye to it. I said, "This is definitely an upgrade." What I mean? It was to the point that it's like, whoa, everything about this belt. It's like, who? Okay, first off, um, why is his name escape me? That designed it, Zebros.
Y- no, Zebros designed it, yes, and the
Yes,
Hellfire Designs.
yeah, they did the strap work, right?
Yeah, they actually did
Everything
that.
about this was just so iconic, to the point that you're like, why does this belt? It just draws your eye to it. It just drew all it, even with the tag team above my head. And I know we're talking about X, right? And we're gonna get to why, one of the major things about this that's driving me insane. But during this era in 2024, we ushered in TNA back to it, right? Chris
Right.
Sabin, the first champion, right?
Right.
We saw a lot of iconic things happen within a year that people are going to probably revert back to this, right? We saw a former WWE guy go over and do the gimmick that he was dying to do in WWE. And I'm asking you, did that gimmick work?
Did it work? What? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. He went over to TNA. First of all, he hit the indie scene heavy with the promotions, the everything. It was on point. The whole campaign. I loved it. It was to a T on point. I'm watching the match right now, actually. Mustafa Ali versus Chris Sabin. No surrender. But Mustafa Ali, oh Mustafa, my fault.
Thank
He
you.
this dude is awesome. I had the pleasure to see him at what was it called? Capital Collision, right? Yeah, Capital Collision in DC with New Japan, and he put on the show. He like I have a whole different perspective about Mustafa Ali. Like at first I wasn't really paying attention to him as much, but this guy can really work. He can really work. He knows how to work the crowd as a heel. Number one, that really got me. As his heel work is phenomenal. He's like a smaller Dolph Ziggler to me. I hate to keep comparing him to Dolph Ziggler, but he's that great. He's a 5 tool player in my eyes. So it's like I wish he could have done more in the WWE. But to be honest, he hit the scene running and he made it work for himself. So I'm proud of him. I hope hopefully he can keep the momentum going.
And it's crazy because your birthday twin from Four Sides of the Ring is a big fan of Mike Bailey. Well, Speedball
Yep.
Mike Bailey. And to
Yep.
see him dethrone Mustafa in the way that he did just made me pay more attention to not only the belt but their rivalry, right? And one thing
Also
that I
that.
noticed
Yep.
about this belt, it looks huge, but it looked like it made them feel like they were the important champion when it came to that match. And that's what a championship belt should do. It should make you feel like I want to see what they're about to do. Let me see why this guy is important. Let me see why this is something I want to see, right? Because we went from Mike Bailey and then we went to, I'm happy that the last rascal got to hold the belt. And I don't want to call him the last rascal, but when um, Zachary Wentz came, he did some. I'm gonna keep saying iconic because we've seen Mickey James come to the Royal Rumble with the TNA
Hmm.
Knockouts. I'm sorry, the Impact Knockouts Championship. We see Jordan Grace come with the TNA Women's Championship. We got to see a rascal come with the X Division title to what was that pay per view?
That was
I'm sorry,
no mercy.
PLE.
No mercy
NXT No
against
Mercy.
against Wesley. Yep.
Wesley,
Yep.
that was a moment. And when I tell you a
Right.
moment, I was so happy to see one. And we can talk about production value, we can talk about quality. People could see and appreciate wow, that's a big deal. Look at this guy with this championship. Even people not knowing what an X Division was, they clearly knew it was a big deal that he was
I
coming to
bet
the
you,
ring with, right?
I bet you they went back and checked it out later.
I'm pretty
Because
sure
look,
it drew some eyes over there.
TNA was like, look, we got some new toys over here. Y'all gonna see these toys. So yeah, yeah. Give it to Winston real quick. He's in a heated rivalry right with Wes Lee right now. Send him
Let him
over
go
to
over there and do
WWE.
something.
Yeah.
Hmm
Throw it on the shoulder real quick. Bring it back and lose it. You know.
And, and it's crazy because it was perfect. And in a year's time, Moose gets it. And he makes the announcement that he doesn't like, I'm just going to paraphrase, he doesn't like the look of the belt or he doesn't like something. He never said he doesn't like the X Division Championship. He didn't like this belt. And I'm going to just show the belt on screen again. What is there not to like about, first off, you went from a very beautiful belt of this, whether it was red or blue, that made
Hmm.
statements, it was just, to me, a very impact looking to show you the difference because all the details in it. If you want to
Yeah.
see this broken down, yeah, we could talk about X marks the spot from season one, but everything about this just screamed, with the anthem owl at the top, the X peeking through it. Everything about this belt was just perfect. And I will say it again, it didn't need any stones, no gems, because of the
Nothing.
details in the belt. Right? We went from that, upgraded, and when I tell you upgrade to the mustache, because now you got me saying that. How do
Hmm.
you not like this belt? And we can talk about the future of the X Division because TNA is not going to get rid of the X Division. I don't care what you say. You can add the digital media, you can add the Legends title, you can add the television title, you can add all these different titles. But one thing about TNA that's always going to be constant, they're going to have an X Division champion. They're going to
Absolutely.
make sure that that champion, and this center plate is massive, but it doesn't look huge on everybody else, right?
That's
So
why
Moose made this.
that announcement caught me off guard. I was like, hold up. Did I read that
I
right? Because
thought
I
it was.
remember I sent it to you. I sent it to you right away. I said, hold up, read this.
I was like,
Here,
that got to be
retiring the
fake.
X Division. I'm like, nah, man, that doesn't make sense at all. Because the X Division is TNA. So
It's
I'm
there.
like, all right, we'll see. But I get it. It's a way to bring more eyes to the product. Get them talking about the belt. Yeah, I'm gonna throw it around. I'm gonna disrespect it. I don't want this mess anymore. I'm gonna bring my own custom in here, and we're gonna bring more eyes to the product because now everybody's gonna want to see how that new X Division belt looks like. You know, so
So,
makes sense.
and for those belt people, and I'm gonna just say that. Remember, at one point he brought back the TNA Heavyweight Championship during the
Yeah,
Impact days, but he had it
yeah.
on a white strap,
On the
and he
white
was
strap.
calling
Yep.
himself the TNA World Champion. So, if I was a betting person, I'm going to just say this: who's to say we don't see a return of this belt on a white strap?
That's possible.
When I
That's very
say it,
possible.
I mean, yes, it has NWA TNA on it, but this was the first version of the X Division Championship. Or unless we go to the second version, where he could possibly bring that one back on a white strap, or he could do something. I think he's going to do something to shake it up, but not to discredit the current title. Now, Brandon, what do you mean by that?
He's getting
Because
he's
Moose
getting
has
rough
shown
now.
us,
Yeah,
uh,
he's just showing off now. He's just showing off now.
with a so if Moose was able to bring back the TNA Heavyweight Championship, not to be confused with the Impact World Title, because this was a time
Right.
when it was Impact Wrestling. He brought back the TNA Heavyweight Championship. The one Bobby Lashley, Matt Hardy, a lot of people, Drew McIntyre. I'm sorry, Drew Galloway's during that time frame. The real big one, not the Wing Eagle of TNA, the one after that. He brought that back with a white strap.
I call it the big gold. TNA's big
The,
gold.
it was a long strap, but
Yeah.
I could see him doing something like this, or even this version, because it was dual plated. It had TNA. Imagine the red and yellow TNA logo on it, right?
Hmm.
The X is very prominent, like before. Imagine this with a white strap, dual plated to kind of rival what, or I don't want to say rival because I don't think they're considered WWE their rivals, but to kind of like compete with the big gold or something to make it look a little bit more flashy for him. Because his character is clearly trying to be larger than life, bigger, all this stuff. But brother Hugh,
Yes, sir.
We got to talk about the future of it because I kind of alluded to it. Where do you see the X Division going next?
Well, I'm gonna tell you what I want to see. I want to see more work between WWE and TNA. I know it died off right now. Hopefully, they go to down the line they revisit it, and maybe we can get some title exchanges between brands. It doesn't have to be long, just to make an impact, make the crowd go woo for a second, and then we can just go move on from there. That's what I'm hoping to see. Just more interaction between TNA and NXT or WWE. But also let the X division do what it do. It's a mid card title for the most part, and it builds stars. You just signed like a KC Navarro. You just signed him. I'd like to see him with it. You have your Ace Austins there. You have guys like that there. Even to your if you wanna go to the bigger side of things, Hammerstone. You can throw it on him. He's a well known name. Throw it on him for a while just to kind of keep it relevant. Um, as much as I brag on Moose, like I he doesn't do it for me at all. But I gotta give him his props because to TNA he's a loyal vet. And much like John Moxley is to AEW, he's Mr. Reliable. So at a time right now where they're pretty much losing stars, they're trying to rebuild in that division because they just lost the Speedball and contracts are coming up or they're ending at the beginning of the year or whatnot. So why not throw it on the Moose? Let him run with it for a while. The TNA crowd knows him, right? He's a vet. He is TNA right now, to be honest. I don't get it, but that's it's the truth. So put it on him, let him bring some eyes to the product, and let it do what it do. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to.
But see, the reason I'm saying I don't think they can ever get rid of the X Division has been the catalyst for some of TNA's major stars and some of our major stars today. What would the X Division be? And we can always say, I can say the safe bet, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. But what would the
Hmm.
X Division be without a Trevor Lee, without a Brian Cage, without a Chris Sabin, a Alex Shelley, Petey Williams, Sanjay Dutt? What would the rest of the world look like? Because they're all not in Hall of Fame roles right now, but they're definitely in conversations. And when I say a conversation, if you're not going to say Petey Williams wouldn't be in that, look what he's doing with
Right.
WWE backstage.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like just because their role ended in the ring doesn't mean they can't continue on the other side of the curtain. And that's what made us pay attention to certain things. Some of the best
Hmm.
matches that TNA had were during that time. The reason that we were pushing for Alex Shelley finally to get the X Division title because he was the last one of that group of guys to never get it. We got things like Ultimate X, Destination X, whole pay-per-views and whole matches sitting around just this division to the point they said the women said, "Oh, we can do one too." And they did an Ultimate X match. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to see him say, I mean, to hear him say, "I'm going to basically get rid of this belt." All right, where's the gimmick? What are you doing here? What's really about to happen? Because there is no possible way. I don't think TNA would be TNA if it wasn't for the X Division because in its exception, a lot of people don't realize they were under the NWA banner of things. Hence why the NWA World Champion was their champion. The NWA Tag Team belts were their tag team. The only thing different was the NWA TNA X Division title. That's the only belt that was theirs. And then when they introduced the women's title, but that's when things started to shift a little. So
Yeah. I'm just eager to see what's next as far as that. Well, what's going on with the new title or whatnot. I'm pretty sure a friend of the channel or of the show has something to do with it. And if he does have something to do with it, it's going to be a banger. That belt is going to be awesome. So I'm just kind of eager to see what's going on and see what he comes up with. See
which
what
I
Moose
think will
comes
be
up
I
with.
think it's gonna be a custom moose belt.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Um I'm okay with certain custom belts, like we talked about with the TNA.
Hmm.
But I'm not okay with certain custom belts because if it don't make sense in the storyline, why are we doing this?
Right, right, right.
And remember, I've been on record. Love Jeff Hardy to death, but we didn't need that immortal belt.
I ain't
Yeah,
gonna
we did.
speak on that. I ain't gonna
Yeah,
speak
okay.
on that.
Why not? I can't get you to can get you to
Nah,
break.
I'm good. I'm
Okay.
good. Uh,
So with with the X division, right?
hmm.
I'm gonna ask you a really tough question. This is not we usually, like to dive into the belts, but I gotta know How does the X Division in a small time from 2002 compare to other mid card scenes? Or does it feel like mid card or secondary title?
I mean, each brand has each promotion has their mid card title. Um, so I mean, of course, it compares in that notion, but to me, X Division is completely different. Is unique uh to TNA. That's kind of like saying ECW, like without violence, it's not ECW, right? So it's
Hmm.
like it's unique to that brand. So without the X Division, you just have another regular brand, just promotion doing the same thing. Like that's something unique to that brand, and it matters for them. That's what's keeping them going right there, because it helps to build more superstars or more stars in their notion. But it also brings that uniqueness to it, and it allows the different talent to interact and have different dance partners that you didn't even think you would want to see, to be honest. Who thought they would have seen somebody like a Samoa Joe versus somebody of a smaller stature, like a Chris Sabin or something? You know what I'm saying? Like you don't never put those two types of categories together, your heavyweights and your light heavyweights or your cruiserweights together, you know?
Or like Austin
So
Aries doing option
yeah,
C
so
and cashing in
right.
to be the world champion.
So
Like,
that's the
oh,
kind of thing
that's what
that
we're
kind
doing.
of that's the kind of thing that kind of captured, like, captivated me, was that you had these different weight limits clashing for a title, and then you throw the Ultimate X in there. What? Come on, man. Those matches are off the chain, man.
Or like a
For real, for real, for real.
Matt Sydal. Remember, he was bouncing between the X Division and what's the other belt? Oh my gosh, the belt that you have. You got two of them. Why am I drawing a blank? The other belt.
Whatever, belt.
What is the name of that? Why am I drawing a blank? The
I
one that
have
had all
X
the special
Division.
rules. No, the other belt. I can't think of it. Why am I drawing a blank?
I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, European?
No, it's a TNA
That's
belt.
that's
No, the other TNA belt. The other belt.
when you said the other belt, I keep thinking about the shows that we did. But digital media,
No, not digital media. The other one before digital media.
you got me lost, bro.
Oh my god, what is the name of that belt? It got blue stones on it. Why am I drawing a
That
blank?
helps.
The
That helps.
Grand Champion.
Oh,
Grand
the Grand
Champion.
Champions. Yeah, I see. I forget about it. It's right here beside me too. Dang, that's crazy.
That's why I don't know why it drove, but it's always been ebbs and flows. And when I say we had the other belt, because
Yeah, it's
remember at
easy
one
to
point we
forget.
had the yeah, because it was Impact, but we had the
Right,
Legends title slash TV slash King of the Mountain belt, right? But it was always X
right.
Division. We saw the Legends title come. Thank you, the Grand Championship. Look who it is, brother Terrence Williams. Thank you, sir. He was there with the save, but we always had those other belts, but the X Division was always constant, and the X
Hmm.
Division. It seemed like when wrestlers were even passing through TNA, because we know we did the shorter contracts, we know some people were there for the long haul. They always seemed to pass through that division like that was a destination for them.
Right,
It
right.
always seemed like it was, well, I got to
It's a
go to
rite of
TNA
passage.
and I
It's a
want to
rite of
be the
passage.
X Division champion because that's where I don't want to sound like Crusade, where the best were wrestling, but that's where the best matches were coming from. That's where the reps were coming from, and it always felt like it was that place. You had Xbox go over there early on, well, Six Pack, right? That's what he was at TNA. But then you had the likes of a Jay Lethal, trying to understand who Jay Lethal was, right? Came out
Hmm.
on top. Um, who can forget TJ Perkins when he was suicide? Because even though Frankie Kazarian was the first one, everybody stepped in at one point to be suicide. Doug
Right,
Williams. Remember,
right.
we didn't expect him to be an X Division wrestler, but it's cool, you know what I mean? And oh, I'm gonna have to stop for a second because he's gonna have to explain himself. The concept of X Division is kind of dated. Oh
Mm.
man. Mm. He says everybody wrestles that style now. Explain. Are you just saying 5-star kick out, 97 finishers, false finishers? I want to know what style he's talking about. Um, one of the things that stood out about the X Division, you had a Abyss with it, but then you had a Brian Kendricks take it off of him. We've had these people, Zima Ion, well, good for of the wrestling realm. But let's just, I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and it's crazy because I'm sitting here trying to think back to some of more classic moments, but it was a dark time in the X division when it was blue. It was a blue Intercontinental title with an X in the middle of it, and that's what I'm say it as. Um,
Hmm.
I've loved the run. I'm sorry. I love the. I did love the run Mustafa Ali had it with it. The title
It's
this
Mustafa.
year. Mustafa Ali. Did I say
Yeah,
Mustafa?
you ain't gonna correct me, and then you gonna go around and say it wrong. I'm gonna correct you, big
Well,
time.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
You're
Absolutely.
welcome. You're welcome. So, but I will say this about the X Division.
Hmm.
Please, it ain't going nowhere. I'm interested to see at Genesis what this plan is because the future of the X is kind of. I hope it's not gone too soon because we talked about
Nah.
belts before in season 1 and 2 that were gone too soon. This is definitely one that needs to stick around. Um,
What would you like to see from the X Division coming up in 2025?
so one thing I loved about the X Division, and it kind of was taking a page out of old WCW books where I would be world champion and I would go back to the US title. And it still felt important, and I was still putting people over, right? So think
Hmm.
about it. Even though you had people coming to, you got to see a rise of like an Ace Austin, but you got to see a resurgence of people like a Matt Sydal who came back to TNA. You know what I mean? You got to see the rise of like a Trevor Lee, but you also got to see like a resurgence of I'm trying to you get what I'm saying? Like you get to see resurgence of people, but you get to see them in a different light, like, okay, they're at least fighting for the X division or they're in that division. And I'm gonna keep saying the X division because even when Trey Miguel and Ace Austin were wrestling, I thought that rivalry was like in comparison to a Edge and Kurt Angle. You know how they were the up and coming stars at that time when they had that rival, and it was around the U.S. title,
Right.
Intercontinental. And it was like feeling like, okay, they're rising up the ranks. I felt that way watching it with a Trey Miguel and an Ace Austin, and even when you like factor in Mike Bailey, but then you get a resurgence of Frankie Kazarian in the mix. Granted, he's never been world champion, but having these people come back and giving them that look what we can do. You get what I'm saying? Or people like Chris Sabin dropping it to Leo Rush. I like that because it keeps it unique. It keeps it fresh. It's just not always about the me and you making each other stars because it's a test before we get to the world title. No, it's about me and you making each other stars. And here's a vet coming in, and they're going to help me make me a star. Or either in defeat or winning, I'm still going to be talking in this conversation because we talk about the Rascals because even as a tag team, as a trio, they were standout stars individually.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Right.
that's what I would like to see. I would just like to see that energy still be there because that's what made TNA special.
See,
Um,
I'm probably asking the wrong person, but would you say we throw this word prestigious around a lot? Would you say that the legacy of that title, the X Division title in general, is that more prestigious or very close to that of the TNA title? Or is that the most prestigious title in TNA Impact history?
so because I hate that word prestigious, and I hate it for
Me
different
too.
reasons, right?
Me too.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
call it. Let me say this: it's the most recognizable title, and probably
Hmm.
the most iconic title of TNA because it's always the world title has had multiple identity crisis. We went from
Hmm.
NWA to TNA to Impact, back to GFW, back to Impact. We went through all of these identity crises, but it's always been the X division. You get what I'm saying? Like that's the belt that has transcended from the its original concept to now. It's always been that X Division Championship. So it is the most recognizable. It's
Yeah.
probably the most iconic because you could literally put an X Division Championship and probably not be disappointed. But if you put it in the world title, you might say, "What is this? What is happening here? Why is this a thing?" But then you got to be very specific. Which era are you watching it? Because during the time when certain people were there, it got really boring. But the X Division was still trying to survive. During the time other people were running it, it got really boring, as in the world title. So I'm gonna say it's been the most stable, and the most iconic. And even we talk about option C, it was sitting around that belt almost like to the point that it became a part of like kind of like a Money to Bank cash. You know how people have Money to Bank and like, yeah, I know I'm going to be world champion. That's what it's
Yeah,
starting to feel like. If I'm X Division champion and I get that option C, watch what happens. I'm going to be the world champion. So that's where I will say, not saying prestigious, because we can talk about, is it the look? Is it who held it? Is it the reigns? Is it what was going on at the time? No, I'm saying the most iconic and the most recognizable and the most centered around what the TNA brand was like, no matter the identity it was. It's the
yeah.
X Division. More than tag
Yes.
team, more than the, and you know what? And the close second would have to be the knockout division, because the knockout division, they had peaks and lows, but when they peak, they sometimes peak beyond other divisions.
I knew you was gonna go there.
You know what I
The
mean? Because they
knockouts.
do.
I know it.
Let's I
Yeah,
mean, let's
you're right.
be honest. The knockout division forced other divisions, I'm sorry, other companies to step up their game as it comes to women's wrestling. The X division kind of made you step up the game of what a high flyer is, what a, I hate that word, 5-star match, but what an OMG or this is awesome moment is when it came to that.
Right, 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 right,
So
right. Okay.
I know that was my rant, but
Now do your thing. Ask the question.
look who's in the comments. What's going on,
What
Mr.
it do?
King? Drop some X division some good things about the X division. Maybe Brother Williams will I call it, well, he said, I don't know if you saw this. He said, you called it flippity dab, 100 false finishes is the whole, that's
He must be talking
exactly,
about AEW.
I said it without saying it.
Yeah.
But that's that's where, and that's I hope that it's not gone too soon, because
hmm
you see how we get passionate about it. That's the one division I can go down a rabbit hole with TNA and not be disappointed.
Absolutely.
Except
Absolutely.
for, I take it back, when the belt was the Intercontinental, the blue oval Intercontinental title with an X in it. That's when I was disappointed, because of the look of the belt, not because of the wrestling. I just couldn't get past the look of the belt. And then they said, "Oh, let's make it green." I was like, "Oh, you made it worse.
Oh yeah, that yeah. I don't know what they did with that.
It,
I,
it made it worse." Um, so with that being said, are you scared that
sounds
it's
like
going to
we.
be gone too soon?
Nah, not at all. Not at all. Like I said earlier, it's a marketing ploy. It's a thing to kind of keep everybody on their toes. They bring some eyes to the product. They have a pay-per-view coming up on Sunday, I believe. So yeah, all right. Well, let's see what's going to happen. We already have Joe Hendry versus Nick Nemeth, but what else is on the card? Oh, Moose is bringing a new title to the to what is it called? Genesis. All
Genesis.
right,
Yep.
yeah, I'm gonna have to tune in to see what's going on. So I mean, that's all it is. It's a marketing ploy.
And to Terrence's point, Mustafa Ali's run, Chris Sabin was there, but if it
hmm
wasn't for Mustafa putting that energy into it, I think it would have kind of died off a little like it normally does. But he
He put that
definitely
extra
brought,
spark in it. Yep.
he put it into, because think about when that, if you get a chance, and I'm a employer, so anybody watching at any time, go back and watch Speedball Mike Bailey versus Mustafa Ali in Canada. It is
Yep.
definitely a match that will probably stand up in wrestling history, but it didn't get the exposure that it should have because of the story. And if you go back and watch Mustafa's interview, there was more to that story that they had to cut due to world events. But I will tell you this, I appreciate that match more, hearing what was the backstory behind it. But he did all of this for a secondary slash mid card championship. That tells you something right there.
It's crazy you mentioned that match because it's actually on my screen right now.
That's
I'm
why you
about
keep looking
17
down.
minutes in. Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely iconic.
Mm-hmm. So
So
feels like we
with
touched
that,
on everything.
I feel like it, because the redesign and the future of the X Division Championship is in question. We hope that it won't be gone too soon, because this is a series we don't like doing the championship culture, because it usually makes me sad when we talk about belts that's gone too soon. I definitely,
hmm
listen here. I don't want this belt. There's no way that
It
this
ain't
belt.
going anywhere.
How do you want this? How do you want this to go away?
That
How?
bad boy is a year old.
Who wants it? It didn't even have time to have the leather split, nothing to be chipped or cracked. Definitely good
Nah,
quality belt. Everything, it's just perfect. And you know how I feel about silver belts. Sometimes they work, sometimes like, ooh, we shouldn't did that. But TNA found a way to make silver work on all their championships.
Moose is just pulling out chain. That's he does what he you know how he operates. He did it before. He brought that old school
Hmm.
TNA belt back, championship belt back. So that's all he's doing. I'm not worried.
With that, mm, with all that being said, I'm gonna leave people with this question: what do you think is going to be the new championship? Do you think we even going to get a new championship?
Hmm.
And who do you think has been the best X Division champion
Thus
of
far.
any era? I'm gonna say any
Oh,
era
yeah.
because you can
Oh,
pick,
okay.
yeah, you can pick different ones. But I'm kind of hitting who my favorite champion is. But I'm gonna put it in the comments on our social media platforms
Yeah,
because
Moose.
so I'm gonna just tell the
You gotta
people
look up. You
this.
gotta look up. You gotta look up.
Mm,
Look up.
mm, mm, stop! You can't even do it with a straight face. I'm gonna say this to the people watching. Make sure you
Yeah.
comment your thoughts here and answer those questions on our social media, right? Tell the
Hmm.
people they can find us here. Where can they find us?
Well, they can find me at HASTAT to the 3RD on all social media. Oh, you want me to sing it? HASTAT to the 3RD on all social media platforms, and you can catch this guy, the guy, Brandon the guy.
Drink it in, man.
You can
I
catch
miss
that
him.
guy.
I miss
You
him so much. I miss
you
that
can catch that
Jericho.
guy at Custom Guy 913 on all social media platforms and Championship Culture at Championship Culture _ on IG.
And I would tell everybody tune in every Tuesday at 8 p.m. for the next episode of Championship Culture. Stay
Hmm.
tuned to our social media because we would love to hear your questions. And there's a new segment coming up that I promise you, you will not want to miss. But until next time, keep your eye on the gold and remember, every belt has a story, and I can't wait to hear yours.
Oh, it's time for Tip Talk.
Let us touch tips.
Go over to Instagram and follow us at Championship Culture _. And don't forget, check out youtube.com/the Wrestling Run. Look for the playlist for Championship Culture. And remember, every belt has a story.